When did Germany actually strike in World War II? How does this date compare to Pearl Harbor or the D-Day landings? Well, it's earlier than both of those events, but that's not all. This date is shrouded in mystery, confusion, and some would even say conspiracy theories. It's May 1940, and in just a few days, German troops are about to march into France. But before that happens, they're going to have to cross a river, one that has shaped the course of human history. But first, why is this date so confusing? Well, there's a lot going on in May 1940. First, we have the famous Battle of France itself, where Germany is about to start its lightning-fast campaign to conquer the country. Then we have the Dunkirk evacuation, where Allied troops are brought back from the beaches of northern France. Oh, and how could I forget, Italy declares war on the British Empire and the French Third Republic. So how could anyone keep track of what happened? What if I told you that there was an entire secret invasion that took place on May? Well, I'm not kidding. On May 1940, German forces secretly invaded one country while preparing to invade another. And I'm here today to reveal exactly when Germany struck. To understand this secret invasion, we have to go to the beginning of the war. For Germany, the country had already been at war with Denmark and Norway for several weeks, although these conflicts were less dramatic. In April, German troops occupied Denmark and Norway without much resistance. This may have led the Allies to believe that Germany was through with invasions for now, and this assumption was only reinforced by the fact that Germany was building up its forces along the French border. The Allies likely assumed that Germany would attack France next. However, this was a ruse. Germany's true plan was to invade both Denmark and Norway at the same time. You might be asking yourself, why did Germany need to invade Denmark and Norway? These countries weren't supplying anything to the Allies, right? Well, actually they were. Norway, in particular, had a ton of iron ore that Britain desperately needed to produce weapons and ammunition. The British placed orders with the Norwegians to ship this ore to them. And because the North Sea route was too dangerous due to German U-boats, the Norwegians had to transport their ore via land. This meant that the Germans were forced to allow Allied convoys to pass through their occupied territories. This situation couldn't last forever, so Hitler decided to tighten the screws and went to war with Norway. Again, while the initial occupation was swift, the war in Norway was dragging on longer than anyone anticipated. The Norwegian resistance was stronger than expected, and the Allies were launching more and more attacks against the Germans. So Hitler decided to do something crazy, invade Denmark again and take control of the country's railroads. With Denmark, Germany would be able to move troops and supplies around the country more quickly and easily. This would help stabilize the front lines and hopefully turn the tide of the war. Hitler hoped that this second invasion would go quicker than the first one. He thought that the Norwegians would see the writing on the wall and realize that it was pointless to resist. Germany was too strong and they wouldn't get any outside help. However, Hitler was wrong. The Norwegians resisted fiercely, and it looked like the invasion was going to be a long and bloody one. This was unacceptable to Hitler. He wanted to secure the Norwegian borders once and for all, but he also didn't want to commit too many resources to the effort. The German army was already spread thin along the front lines in France and Belgium, so he turned to the SS for help. The SS was tasked with conducting a surprise attack on key targets throughout the country. They would then hold these targets until the regular army could arrive and secure the area. The operation was called, and it was conducted on May 1940. This date is particularly significant because it is the same day that Italian forces crossed into British Somaliland. Coincidentally, it's also the same day that the German army began its advance through Belgium and northern France. So how did the secret invasion play out? Let's begin with the Norwegian port city of Bergen. It was here that SS troops landed and took control of the harbor. They then pushed inland towards the city of Stavanger, where they destroyed important bridges and cut off communications to Oslo. At the same time, another group of SS troops landed near Trondheim and moved south. Their task was to capture the city of Hamar and prevent the Norwegians from reinforcing the defenses around Oslo. A third group of SS troops landed near the Swedish border and advanced towards the city of Jovik. Their job was to protect the flank of the main assault force and prevent any outside interference. These three groups of SS troops were supported by German naval forces who bombarded Norwegian positions and protected the flanks of the advancing troops. Meanwhile, a fourth group of SS troops was being prepared to invade the Danish island of Bornholm. This group was tasked with capturing the islandese airfields and preventing the Royal Danish Air Force from attacking the German Navy. These SS troops were supposed to land on May, but bad weather forced them to delay the invasion until May. As you can see, everything was happening really fast. All of these attacks were launched within the span of a few days. So how did the Norwegians react to this sudden attack? Well, they fought back bravely, but they were ultimately defeated. The Germans were too strong and their communications were cut off. Soon, the Germans had taken control of all key targets and Norway was effectively neutralized. But wait a minute, don't we know that Germany officially declared war on Norway on April? How could they be invading a neutral country? Well, it's true that Germany declared war on Norway on April, but that doesn't mean that they stopped fighting alongside the Norwegians. In fact, German troops continued to fight alongside their Norwegian allies until the very end. In other words, Germany didn't actually declare war on Norway until after they had already invaded the country. So why did they do this? Why not simply occupy the country without declaring war? There are a few possible explanations. First, by declaring war, Germany could justify its actions to the international community. After all, they were simply returning to a state of hostilities that had existed since April. Second, by declaring war, Germany could mobilize its full military potential. No longer would it have to worry about Norwegian objections or reprisals from the Allies. Finally, by declaring war, Germany could make sure that the Norwegians took the invasion seriously. After all, if the Germans were willing to risk international condemnation and break their own laws, then the Norwegians should definitely take cover. Ultimately, Hitler's decision to declare war on Norway was a risky one, but it paid off in a big way. The Norwegians put up a fierce fight, but they were ultimately defeated. The war in Norway was over almost as soon as it began. But why did the Norwegians fight so hard? After all, their country was effectively neutral. Well, the answer is simple. The Norwegians knew that their country was next on Germany's hit list. You might be thinking to yourself, I know that Germany eventually invaded Norway, but how could the Norwegians know this was coming? Wouldn't this have been classified information? Well, yes, it would have been classified information, but the Norwegians had a spy in Germany who kept them informed of what was happening. His name was Vernon Bruce Lockhart, and he was the British vice consul in Hamburg. Lockhart had been in Germany since 1938, and he had a network of spies throughout the country. One of his spies was a high-ranking member of the Nazi Party. Lockhart passed this information on to the Norwegians, and they used it to prepare for the German attack. This wasn't the only piece of classified information that Lockhart uncovered, though. He also learned that Germany was planning a second invasion of France. Now, this may seem shocking, but it's actually not surprising at all. The British had known for months that Germany was planning a second invasion of France. They just didn't know when it would happen. Lockhart's spy confirmed that the attack was imminent, and he passed this information on to the British government. This allowed the British to evacuate their troops from France and avoid a disaster. Lockhart's work was crucial to both the Norwegians and the British, but it came at a great personal cost when the Germans invaded Norway. Lockhart was arrested and sent to one of Germany's infamous prison camps. He was tortured for months, but he never gave up his sources. In the end, he was executed by the Nazis for being a spy, but his sacrifice saved countless lives. So when did Germany actually strike? Well, there's two answers to this question. If you're asking when did Germany launch the attack on Norway, then the answer is simple. It was May 1940. But if you're asking when did Germany officially declare war on Norway, then the answer is April. This created a strange situation where Germany was technically at war with Norway but hadn't yet invaded the country. It's a situation that would be unthinkable in any other conflict, but it was actually pretty common during World War II. So what do you think? Was this a significant moment in World War II, or was it just a footnote in the greater scheme of things? Let me know your thoughts down below, and as always guys, thank you so much for watching and I hope you learned something new.